Brother slid a manila folder across the kitchen table like it was a dinner roll. Casual, like what was inside wasn't going to change everything. "Just sign it," he said. "It's already done. You just need to make it official." Inside was a quitclaim deed from my grandmother's house. My name was already on it, except I hadn't signed it. Someone had, and the notary stamp was dated 3 weeks ago when I was in Portland at a conference 800 miles away. I looked up at him. He was smiling. My sister-in-law was standing by the refrigerator, arms crossed, watching me the way you watch a timer. My mother was at the head of the table, hands folded, not looking at me. I set the folder down slowly. "Where did you get this notarized?" I asked. He shrugged. "Estate stuff moves fast. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I also knew that I hadn't signed anything, which meant someone had signed for me. And I knew, in that moment, with the refrigerator humming and my mother staring at the tablecloth, that this wasn't a mistake. This was the plan. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I love knowing who's part of this community. 72 hours before my brother put a forged deed in front of me, I was sitting in my car outside a Whole Foods in Austin, eating a sandwich and answering emails on my lunch break. Normal Tuesday. The most complicated thing in my life was a client dispute over a contractor invoice. I'm a real estate paralegal. I spent 6 years untangling property documents, deeds, titles, liens, easements, the kind of paperwork most people sign without reading. My grandmother used to joke that I was the only person in the family who actually understood what we owned. She wasn't wrong. When she passed 8 months ago, she left the house. Not just any house. A craftsman bungalow in central Austin that she'd owned free and clear since 1987. Property values in that zip code had gone insane in the last decade. The house was assessed at $1.2 million. She left no will, which I always found strange. Because my grandmother was meticulous about everything else in her life. Her recipes were indexed, her Christmas card list was annotated, she kept receipts in labeled envelopes going back to 1994. But there was no will, which meant the estate went to intestate succession, split between my mother, my uncle, and their children, which was my brother and me. Equal shares. That's how Texas law works. My brother knew this. He'd hired his own estate attorney 6 weeks after the funeral, which I thought was strange timing, but grief does strange things to people. Or so I told myself. My phone buzzed while I was in that parking lot. It was my mother. She said she needed me to come to Sunday dinner. She said my brother wanted to talk through the estate stuff. She said it in the same tone she used to use when she wanted me to apologize to him after a fight, regardless of who started it. Measured. Prescripted. I told her I'd be there. After I hung up, I sat in the car for a minute. I thought about the last time I'd seen my brother. It was at the reading of the intestate determination, and he'd barely spoken to me. He'd spent most of the appointment on his phone, and when the attorney confirmed equal distribution, his jaw tightened in a way I'd seen my whole life. That specific clench that meant he'd already decided something and the world just hadn't caught up yet. I finished my sandwich. Then I called my supervising attorney, a woman named Paige who'd been practicing real estate law in Texas for 22 years. I told her I was probably being paranoid. She said paranoid people stay out of trouble. She told me to pull the property records first thing in the morning. I pulled them at 7 a.m. the next day from the Travis County Appraisal District website. The house was still in my grandmother's name. That was normal. Estate transfers take time. But there was a document flag I almost missed. A pending deed filing, submitted 11 days earlier. I couldn't see the full document without going to the county clerk's office in person. I went on my lunch break. I stood at the counter and waited while the clerk pulled it up, and I watched her face do the thing faces do when something is off. A small, almost imperceptible pause before she handed me the printout. It was a quitclaim deed. My grandmother's house, transferred to my brother's name. Sole ownership. No mention of my mother. No mention of me. Signed by my grandmother, who had been dead for 8 months. And signed by me. Witnessed. Notarized. The notary seal was from a mobile notary service in Pluggerville. The date on my signature was a Saturday in March. I had been in Portland that entire weekend. I had a hotel receipt, a conference badge, and 47 photos geotagged to the Pacific Northwest. I stood at that county clerk counter for a long time. The woman behind the desk asked if I was okay. I told her I needed a certified copy of everything. I paid the $12. I walked back to my car. I didn't cry. I didn't call my brother. I called Paige. She listened without interrupting, which is how I knew it was serious. Paige interrupts constantly. It's actually one of her best qualities. It means she's engaged. When she went quiet on the phone, I felt it in my chest. "This is deed fraud," she said finally. "Forging a deceased person's signature on a property transfer is a first-degree felony in Texas. Forging your signature as a witness is a separate count. The notarization alone could get someone disbarred or decertified." "What do I do?" "You don't confront him yet," she said. "You have Sunday dinner. You act normal. And between now and Sunday, we work." I asked her what we were building. She said, "A case." The next 48 hours were the most useful I'd spent since law school. Paige contacted a title company she trusted to put a quiet title hold on the property, a mechanism that flags the deed as disputed and prevents any sale or transfer from being processed until the dispute is resolved. She also contacted the Travis County District Attorney's Office and a detective in the Financial Crimes Unit named Reeves, who was apparently very familiar with deed fraud schemes involving estate properties. I spent those 2 days pulling everything I could find: my hotel receipts, my conference registration, my boarding passes. I had a photo on Instagram from that Saturday in March, time-stamped 11:42 a.m. of me standing in front of Powell's Books in Portland, 600 miles from where my signature supposedly appeared on a notarized deed. Detective Reeves wanted a recorded conversation if I could get one. He explained that Texas is a one-party consent state, meaning I could legally record any conversation I was part of without notifying the other party. He also explained what to listen for: any admission that the deed had been prepared, any reference to the notarization, any mention of money. He said if my brother or sister-in-law confirmed any element of the scheme on record, combined with the documentary evidence, the DA had what they needed to move. I said I'd do it. That night, I sat in my apartment in the dark for a while. Not because I was scared. I knew what I was walking into. I was sitting there because I kept thinking about a specific moment from when I was 12 years old. My brother was 17, and he backed my mother's car out of the driveway without permission and scraped the door against the mailbox. He came inside, found me watching TV, and told me to come outside. He said he needed to show me something. When we got to the driveway, he handed me the keys. "Tell them you did it," he said. "You're younger. They'll be less mad." I was 12. I didn't understand yet that some people treat kindness as a resource to be extracted, not a feeling to be reciprocated. I told my parents I did it. My mother grounded me for 2 weeks. My brother got Chinese takeout that night because it was his turn to pick dinner. I stood in that driveway at 12 years old, being punished for damage I didn't cause, and he stood in the kitchen eating lo mein. That was the first time. It wasn't the last. I blinked and I was back in my apartment, 31 years old, looking at a certified copy of a deed with my forged signature on it. Some things don't change. They just get more expensive. I put the copy in my bag, set my phone to record in my coat pocket, and went to Sunday dinner. The house my mother rented in Round Rock was the kind of modest that tried to look comfortable. She'd had the same furniture since I was in middle school. The dining table wobbled unless you put a coaster under one leg. There was a framed cross stitch on the wall that said, "Bless this home," and the H had been slightly off-center since the nail shifted in 2009. My brother's truck was already in the driveway. So was his wife's SUV. I sat in my car for exactly 2 minutes. Then I went in. My mother hugged me at the door. She smelled like the vanilla candles she ordered in bulk from a catalog. She said she was glad I came. Her voice had that particular quality, the same one I'd cataloged over 31 years. That meant she was managing something, smoothing it over in advance. "Your brother's already here," she said, like that was good news. My brother was at the kitchen table. He'd gained a little weight since the funeral. His wife was leaning against the counter with a glass of wine, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was always like that around me, pleasant in the way of someone who's decided to be pleasant as a strategy. "Hey," my brother said. He stood up and hugged me, which was unusual. He was a side-hug person at best. A full embrace meant he wanted something. "Glad you could make it?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said. My mother served pot roast that she'd been cooking since that morning. It was good, actually. Better than the occasion deserved. We talked about nothing for 20 minutes. The weather. A cousin's new baby. A mutual friend from high school who'd moved to Denver. My brother did most of the talking. He was in a good mood. Looser than usual, louder than usual. And I watched him the way I watch documents, looking for what's missing. What's been altered? What doesn't line up? His wife refilled her wine glass twice before the roast was finished. Then my brother put his elbows on the table and looked at me with an expression he probably thought read as sincere. "So," he said, "we should talk about Grandma's house." I put down my fork. "Okay, I've been working with an attorney, getting the estate squared away. There are some transfer documents that need your signature, just to clean things up with the title." He slid the folder across the table. Same manila folder, same deed inside. My forged signature, dated to a weekend I was not in Texas. I opened it slowly. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I looked at him. "This has already been filed," I said. "It shows up in the county records. As of 2 weeks ago." Something shifted in his face. A micro-expression. Not guilt, exactly, more like recalibration. He was deciding how to play this. "It's a clerical thing," he said. "They file the pending version first, and then the final version supersedes it once all the parties sign." I looked at my mother. She was cutting a piece of roast into very small pieces and not looking at either of us. She knew. She'd known the whole time. She hadn't warned me. "Who signed for me on the pending version?" I asked. My brother shrugged. "Paralegal probably made a notation to hold the space. You know how those offices are. They just want to get the paperwork moving." His wife nodded. Very convincingly. She'd practiced that nod. "I was in Portland when this was notarized," I said. "That entire weekend. I have the hotel. I have the conference badge. I have a photo at Powell's Books at 11:42 in the morning with a geotag." The air changed. My brother's jaw did the thing. That specific clench. "Rosie," he started. "I haven't gone by Rosie since I was 9, but he always used it when he was trying to soften me up. That's my forged signature," I said. I kept my voice even. "And that's Grandma's signature, and she's been dead for 8 months. So what I need you to explain to me is how a deceased woman and I both signed a notarized document on a Saturday in March, when one of us was in Oregon and the other one was in a cemetery." My mother set down her fork. My sister-in-law drank her wine. My brother leaned forward. He was done with the warm voice. "Look," he said. "Lower now. The house is going to sell either way. The market isn't going to wait for your feelings about equal distribution. I found a buyer. Cash offer. $1.1 million. It closes in 3 weeks? That's not your decision to make." "It is now," he said. "The deed is in my name. It's filed. Your signature is on it. If you make this difficult, the buyer walks, and then nobody gets anything. That deed is fraudulent. Prove it." His wife set her glass down. "We're not trying to cut you out," she said smoothly, like she'd rehearsed this part specifically. "We were going to give you something. A fair share. Something reasonable." "A third is reasonable," I said. "That's what Texas law says." "Texas law says a lot of things," my brother said. "But you'd have to spend years litigating this, and I have a buyer right now and a clean title as far as anyone in that office is concerned." I looked at him. I thought about Powell's Books. I thought about the 12-year-old in the driveway. I thought about the phone in my coat pocket, recording every word. I thought about Detective Reeves. I thought about Paige. I looked at my brother and I said, very quietly, "You shouldn't have filed that deed." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Why not?" he said. "Because," I said, "I put a quiet title hold on that property 4 days ago. The sale can't close. The deed is flagged as disputed with the county. The DA's Financial Crimes Unit has a copy of the filing, a copy of my Portland receipts, and your name." His wife's glass stopped halfway to her mouth. "And," I said, "I've been recording this conversation since I walked in the door." The table went very quiet. My mother made a small sound, something between a breath and a word that didn't make it out. My brother's face went through several things in about 4 seconds. Disbelief, first. Then calculation. Then something that was almost fear but settled into anger because fear felt too exposed. "You can't do that," he said. "Texas is a one-party consent state," I said. "I was a party to this conversation." He stood up. The chair scraped back hard against the linoleum. "You're destroying this family," he said, voice cracking at the top. "Over a house." "You forged my signature," I said, "and our dead grandmother's. And you had it notarized by someone who either didn't do their job or chose not to. You destroyed the family. I'm just the one with documentation." His wife was very still now, the kind of still that meant she was thinking about her own exposure. I addressed her directly. "The notary who stamped that document is from Plagerville," I said. "If you hired them, that's conspiracy to commit deed fraud. If your name is anywhere on the coordination of this, you need your own attorney, not his." She looked at my brother. He didn't look back. My mother pushed back from the table and walked to the kitchen window. She stood there with her back to us. I watched her shoulders. She didn't defend him. She didn't defend me either. She just stood there, looking out at the backyard, and I understood something I'd probably known for a long time without letting myself say it plainly. She'd always known who he was, and she'd always let it happen, because keeping the peace felt safer to her than keeping score. "I want everyone to be okay," she said to the window. "I know," I said, "but what you want and what you did aren't the same thing." Detective Reeves and a colleague came to my apartment the following morning. I gave them the recording, the certified deed copy, my travel documentation, and the name of the mobile notary service. I also gave them a signed statement. Within 10 days, my brother was charged with 2 counts of first-degree felony deed fraud, 1 count of forgery of a government document, and 1 count of fraudulent filing with a public office. His wife was charged with conspiracy. The mobile notary, a man who'd done this before for a different client, apparently, had his certification revoked and faced his own criminal charges separately. The title hold protected the property through the entire investigation. The fraudulent deed was voided by court order. The estate went back to intestate proceedings with all 3 rightful heirs, my mother, my uncle, and, equally, my brother and me. Except my brother's share is now the subject of civil forfeiture proceedings tied to the criminal case. Paige says it'll take another year to fully resolve. I go to her office every few weeks and we move through it piece by piece. It's not dramatic anymore, it's just paperwork. My grandmother's house is still standing. Tenants are renting it now through the estate while everything works out. I drove past it once, about a month ago, on my way to a closing in that neighborhood. The Craftsman porch looked the same. The oak tree in the front yard that she used to hang bird feeders from still had 2 feeders up. I didn't stop, but I looked. My mother called me in January. She didn't apologize, exactly. She said she was sorry things had gone the way they had. I told her I wasn't sure what things she meant. She was quiet for a while. Then she said she hoped we could still have dinners sometimes. I told her I'd have to think about it. I haven't thought about it yet. My brother sent 1 text through his attorney asking if I would consider dropping the civil suit if he signed over his estate share to me voluntarily. I forwarded it to Paige, who laughed so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Some things run out. Patience runs out. The goodwill you extend because you're supposed to, because they're family, because you were 12 and didn't know better. It runs out eventually. I'm not angry anymore. That's the part people don't expect when you tell them how something like this ends. They want you to be furious or triumphant, and honestly, for a while, I was both. But what I feel now, sitting in my actual apartment with my actual name on my actual lease, is something quieter. My grandmother was meticulous. She kept receipts and labeled envelopes going back to 1994, and she never wrote a will, which always bothered me. I think now that she trusted the law to sort it out. She trusted that the truth had a way of surfacing if you knew how to read documents. She raised a family that included me. I know how to read documents. I think she knew that too.